Hi, welcome to Travel Talk with Sucheta, with me, Sucheta Raval. Thank you for joining me today. And today we're going to talk about press trips. So, if you have any questions or comments during this video, make sure to post a comment on the chat button, which is on the right side of your screen, or you can even leave me comments later on. So I'd like to answer questions as I get along, or I can also revisit them later on. So thank you again for joining me. And it's an exciting topic because a lot of people ask me how I travel so much for so often, and people say, hey, you must have a lot of money to travel so often and you're going to exotic destinations all the time. Every time I look around, I see you in a different country. So no, I don't have a lot of money. I barely make enough to survive. But what I do have is access to press trips. By the way, before I get started, you may see someone on the side of the screen. That is Beato, my cat. He's the famous cat that you have seen in my children's book series, Beato Goes To. So say hi to Beato back there in the background. Okay, so let's talk about what press trips are. About 8 years ago, I was at a conference in New York City. So this was International Association of Culinary Professionals conference. And back then I was writing about food, mainly restaurant reviews, some recipes and ideas from my own culinary journeys. And I was sitting in one of these sessions and somebody said, hey, if you're interested about writing food internationally, people are going to pay you to come travel to their destination and experience the food in that country. And in my head, I was like, what? I can travel for free and eat and drink? So I wanted to know more. And soon after that conference, of course, I researched everything about press trips and how I can travel for pretty much free. And since then, I have traveled to 80 some countries, from food tours in Greenland to taking a 20% private yacht cruising in the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. I've driven in the south of France, going from Nice and Cannes to Saint-Tropez, tasting, staying in beautiful hotels. I've stayed at a farm in Tuscany where I learned to cook Italian food. I've slept in an ice hotel in Canada, and I've had all these very unique experiences. And I have to tell you, I have not paid anything for them. Now, what are press trips? So these are not vacations. A lot of people see the photos and like, oh, you're having so much fun. You're drinking and eating and taking amazing pictures in these beautiful locations. But there's a lot of work involved. This is just like business travel for anybody who is working. My line of business happens to be travel. So I'm not paying myself, but my profession is paying for me to be there and observe the scenery, the people, the food, the festivals, and write about it. So these are definitely not a vacation. This is work where you're sponsored to be there. And there are two kinds of press trips. There's group trips and there are individual trips. So I'll tell you a little bit more about each of them, and I'll tell you my personal preference. So group trips are basically invitations that are sent out to media where they are looking for people, influencers and writers to come and experience their destination, a hotel, a city, or a special tour, and be able to share that. So these are generally from 4 to even 15 people at a time. I mean, I've been to a group trip to Sri Lanka recently, which was 60 people. And I've been on a culinary tour to Israel, which was only 4. So it can vary in size. But the idea is that they would send out an invitation, you have to apply, and then based on who you are, they may select you to join. The thing is that they decide on the itinerary. So they'll give you a whole itinerary, and you have to see if that's of interest to you before you decide to apply. The other kind of trip is an individual trip, which means it's just organized for you. It's based on your interest of where you want to go, how long you want to go for, and what you want to see. And that's kind of the travel I do a lot more than the group trips, because then I can handpick the destinations that I'm interested in. And I'm also able to define the itinerary based on my interest, which happens to be more around food and culture and people, and around sustainable traveling. So it gives me an opportunity to meet locals, to hang out in the villages, to spend more time one on one on places I would like to spend time at, versus in a group trip, they're defining your itinerary and everybody goes together, just the exact same activities, and you can't really spend more or less time. The other thing is with photography, which is so important in travel. Everybody, all the journalists have to take their own pictures, at least it's preferred, and even videos. So with a group trip, everybody is taking the exact same photos at the exact same time, so it can be very cumbersome. But in an individual trip, you can spend as much time as you want, stop the car, take some photos of something you may see, or stand and talk to somebody for a longer time. So it gives you a little more flexibility to do that. Now, of course, there are the pros and cons too, because with a group trip, generally all expenses are paid for, including your flights, your meals, your stay, your activities, and tipping and those kind of things. Versus an individual trip, you may have to pay some of those costs yourself. So a lot of times I have to pay my own airfare, which is fine if it's a destination I really, really want to go for. But in my case, I've traveled to 80 plus countries, so I don't want to repeat a lot of the places. I don't want the exact same stories as all other journalists are getting. So I want to find the uniqueness in the country, and that's why it works better for me to do individual trips. Now, what makes you eligible for a press trip? If anybody could get on it, all of us would be traveling for free all of the time, won't we? Well, you have to be an influencer or a writer or somebody affiliated with media to have that pull to be invited to a press trip. The first thing they're going to ask you is what are the outlets you're writing for? Or if you have a blog, what is the following on your blog? How many people read it? What is your reach on social media? That's really important these days. And then next thing they're going to ask you is, do you have any confirmed assignments? That, which is very tricky because sometimes you just want to go experience the destination first and then see what are the ideas, the stories that resonate with you before talking to your editors about it. But a lot of times the travel destinations are looking for the confirmed assignment upfront. So that makes it a little difficult. So you have to provide all of that information before they even accept you and agree to sponsor you on a trip. Now, once you get there, there are certain expectations too. Remember, this is a business travel, it's not vacation. So they will define your itinerary in terms of you will be doing something from the time you wake up till the time you sleep, and every minute in between. So you have to show up all of the time, be interested, and be active. So that means you don't have time to take a nap or sit by the pool or just have a drink. You have to be seeing things, interviewing chefs, meeting people, taking photos, videos, writing notes, and doing social media all on the fly. And trust me, it's a lot of work when you think about it, because you are in a new destination, you may be jet lagged, you may be tired, and you are just wanting to explore and see, but then you're having to work as well. So it's long days, but it is a lot of fun if that's what you enjoy doing. They obviously expect you to post on social media as you get along and show interest in everything that they have offered to show you. A big part of that is eating and drinking. Yeah, because chefs have been waiting for you to come and write about them. So a lot of times they go all out and prepare so many different things, and they want to have wine paired 10-course meals for you. And then you go to the next restaurant the same day and they do the exact same thing. And you can't say, sorry, I'm not hungry. I just had a big lunch. You can't say, my stomach is upset or I'm not feeling too well. And definitely not that you are on a diet. That's a big no no. You can't be a travel and food writer if you're on a diet. So you have to accept everything they offer you to eat and drink with gratitude. Take pictures, take notes, and take bites and write about it. Last thing I want to say is you have to be appreciative and courteous to your host. A lot of media, I have seen a lot of journalists who have been on press trips and they just take things for granted and they feel like, oh, I need to be pampered and I need to just have everything offered to me because I write for such a big magazine. And I feel that's a very bad attitude to have. You are a guest in the country and you should show appreciation for anything that's offered to you. And even things don't always go right, which they won't. You have to just be flexible, accept it, and go with the flow. So, how do you get on this press trip? It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Well, first of all, you have to build your audience. So, if you're already writing for some publications or your own blog, go back and look at the numbers. Where do you stand in terms of your influence and your reach? So, get that down and try to work on increasing that. Then you can sign up for certain media lists that put out information about press trips and destinations that are inviting people to come and experience it. One of them I signed up for is called the International Travel Writers Alliance, and they send out a monthly bulletin, and I go through it and see which destinations are really interested in getting their name out there. Another one I look at is Media Kitty and help a reporter out. Also join organizations that are catering to travel writers. So I'm a member of the Professional Travel Bloggers Association, Impact Travel Alliance, and International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association. All of these have specific newsletters for press trips for just their members. So most of these are group press trips, but a lot of times the sponsors are willing to work individually as well. Next, attend conferences. So, as you saw in my last video, I was at the New York Times travel show. I also attended the International Media Mingle. I've been on TBACs and been to other conferences, travel adventure shows. And these are places where destinations are coming to get their name out there to consumers and to media. So it's a good place to network with potential sponsors, with countries, and with travel agents, DMOs, tourism departments, visitors bureaus, and that way you can make a direct connection with them and offer your service. Next, you can always network with other travel writers. I have gotten so many press trips based on just word of mouth and referrals. I have friends who are travel writers and they call me and say, well, I can't go on this trip to Japan because I'm already scheduled to go on another trip, but would you be interested in going instead? And I can refer you as a potential candidate. And just the networking has been very useful. And the last thing is just pitching directly. Now, I've traveled to over 80 countries, so chances of me being interested in a lot of these group press trips that are sent out are pretty slim. But I will seek out places that I am really interested in going to that I have not been, or I would like to experience a certain style of travel. And I'll reach out to that tour operator, cruise company, airline, and say, I'm interested in writing about you. And just contacting their media department and having that conversation is really generally enough to get you going on that. So, are you excited to travel the world for free? Just writing, taking photographs and videos, and being an influencer? Well, I can't wait to share more with you next time. If you have any questions, of course, send me an email, write a comment below, or in the chat section. Um, Ami, you have a question on making live videos and sharing expertise. Yeah, absolutely. You should do that even while you're on the press trips. And press and blog folks definitely have a different agenda on trip. Yes. And I have seen bloggers who are just interested in taking photographs of beautiful destinations, and they're really not interested in the culture or the what the story is of the place, the food. They are just interested in great pictures for Instagram, and that's fine. We need that too. But then there are others who are more interested in the storytelling, and they're really not interested in photographs. And so there are different people who you will encounter on the trips. And it's just a matter of finding that right balance and what you are interested in. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you want to join me next time, that's going to be February 20th. And I'm going to talk about the life in the day of a travel writer. Now, I will be on a trip, on a press trip next week to St. Augustine, Florida. So I'll come back from that trip and tell you how that went and what was my everyday like. So join me February 20th, same time, same place on YouTube Live. Take care and have safe travels until then.